Good morning, everybody. How's it going? How's the sound? Good? Bad? Middle of the road? Check, check. How's the sound coming across, guys? Good? Alright, good deal. Got a lot of different things to share today, a lot of pictures. A lot of pictures you guys have sent in. They're all on the website at Sky Phenomenon Photo Gallery. What you're looking at now is something unusual that was filmed from the Philippines, and I can't quite figure out what it was. It'll play again here in just a few minutes, but if you have pictures to send in, don't forget to send them to reports at mrmbb333.com. Check this out here. This is a photo sent in from Fort Myers, Florida. What's unusual is we've seen a lot of these here lately. Look just exactly like that from different parts of the world. I have no idea what they are, but they're not reflections. They're real. People observe these things. Here's another one. This is from England. I'm going to go in closer. Look at that. Here's another one. This is not a reflection. You can see what looks like an orange orb over there behind the clouds. Here it is up close. Very obvious, and that again is not a reflection. Have you ever seen anything like this? We got lots of stuff today. I mean, a ton. This was taken in Oregon just a few days ago, actually. Lots more to come, guys. Got a really cool video out of North Carolina. This here's a triangle in the background. See it? South Padre Island. This was actually yesterday. Totally obvious there's a triangle on the horizon back there, vertically. I've actually seen one of those horizontally early in the morning, about 4 months ago. The one I saw was horizontal, not vertical. Very big. Talking incredibly big. That's in South Padre Island this morning, or I'm sorry, yesterday morning. This is a picture from Chicago, and it kind of speaks for itself. You can see what look like multiple light sources, like up here in the 10, 11 o'clock position with regard to the sun. There's also a smaller one, but the bigger one is perfectly round, and the person that's what they saw. That's why they took the picture. They were sitting at a stoplight in Chicago. This was taken a few days ago. This was out of Oregon. Just a really cool sky. Sent in this week. There's another photo comes out of Oregon, Salem, Oregon. And it spans the entire sky. Look at that. This one here is from Zanesville, Ohio. And you can see some more orbs in the sky. That's why the gentleman took the picture. Zooming in a little tighter so you can see them. And most of these pictures were sent in this week. There were more than just two. That's why the guy took the picture. So again, if you have pictures, send them to reports@mrmbb333.com. Photograph taken from right out here in Arizona. Highway to Heaven. That's taken in New Mexico. Our friend Wendy Wagner. This photo was sent in this week, and it's looks like a comet. It actually looks like two comets. Some sort of chemtrail activity near the sun. And here's another photo sent in today, actually yesterday, and you can see a white ring underneath the halo of the sun. I've never seen that before. I've seen the halo. We've all seen the halo, but there's a white ring underneath the halo of the sun. Now we're back to the Philippines again. You can't really see anything right here, but what I looked at here it is, up close. When I looked at this up close and in super slow motion, you want to know what this looked like? It looked like a bird. Honestly, it looked like it had wings flapping. That would be like the largest bird ever. That's what it looked like, a bird. You can see wings flapping there. But that's probably 6,000 feet in the air. Pretty incredible. These orbs were witnessed in Fort Myers, Florida. What I'm going to show you here in a minute is another orb identical to the ones you're seeing here, except it's a single. It was captured on video in Concord, North Carolina. Really cool video. It's a real short video, but the orb looks exactly like that. This one here is the same shape, just a different color. This was captured over in England. Let's go to, real quick, I want to take you guys to, okay, we're seeing a lot of these here lately. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've seen more than I have in 2 years. So let's go to, all right, here's what we're going to look at next. See how these orbs resemble each other? They look a lot alike, just a slightly different color. And maybe it was because of the time of day. The one on the left was taken in England, and the one on the right in Concord, North Carolina. Also have a video of the one from North Carolina. Lady was sitting at a stoplight when this thing occurred. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
What the hell is that?
This is actual footage, and this was actually observed by a young lady by the name of Manu. This is an unknown craft that was spotted in Concord, North Carolina, and as you can see, it resembles the other objects that I've been showing you. But only this one here, you can see it actually moving across the sky. Here it is in reverse format, and you can see it's got like a vapor trail or something behind it. I don't know if that's some sort of an energy field, if it's dragging clouds.
What the hell is that?
Regular speed. That's what she actually saw in the sky. Here it is in slow motion. She was sitting at a stoplight in Concord, North Carolina. Look at that thing. So that tells us that these other things that were showing up in photographs, well, the two in Fort Myers, Florida, and I'll show you those here in just a minute, those were actually witnessed by the observer that took the picture, saw them in the sky. And they look very similar to this thing here, with the exception that there were two.
What the
Not
hell is
just
that?
one, two. So I don't know if maybe this is some sort of a drone. It doesn't look like any drone I've ever seen, but there's the two right here you see underneath. Those were the two that were spotted in Fort Myers, Florida. And I'll take you back to those here in just a moment. Let me see if I can find the original of the two from North Carolina. Or I'm sorry, Fort Myers.
What the hell is that?
Actually, that picture, there it is right there. The two on the bottom were spotted in Fort Myers, Florida. The one on the left is England. The one on the right is North Carolina. And there's more. Believe it or not, there's more. They're just not as obvious as what you see right here. But there are more. In fact, I'm going to share something with you here I found on a satellite image. Actually, I found this about
What the hell is
3 weeks
that?
ago. About a week before the full moon, supermoon. And you can see on this satellite loop, this is infrared. Look at the center of the picture towards the top, right around the 12 o'clock position. You can see the clouds are in a crescent moon type of a shape. If there were more clouds in this picture towards the top, it may show us a full circle. But nevertheless, this is on a satellite instrument in infrared. What we're looking at here is a image, actually it's a screenshot from a satellite image I was observing. This is a satellite looking at the southern hemisphere of planet Earth. This is over Indonesia and I think the Maluka Sea down in that area. And what we're seeing is a round orb of some sort in the infrared photograph. It's a screenshot of from high above Earth. These are clouds. But I have no idea what we're looking at here in the center. It looks like a round object that shows up in infrared. And I have no idea why. Just a random photograph or random image that I found on the GOES 16 instrument. Once again, in infrared. This next photograph Anybody ever see anything like this? I've never seen a photograph like this ever. And what they were doing was taking a photograph of the moon. The moon is actually in the center of this photograph at right around the 9 o'clock position. But that's not what they ended up imaging. Some sort of a weird series of rings, and they had their recording device pointed straight up into the sky. Have you ever seen anything like that? Is this some sort of like a digital malfunction, or did this camera legitimately pick up something very, very unique? Kind of like the situation up in the state of Washington back 2 weeks ago. The large trees, the Douglas firs, not only. We're not talking about just any little old trees here. The giant Douglas firs that were broken off at the ground up in the state of Washington the night of January 27th. Over 100. And nobody knows what happened. There was no weather that night, no landslides that anybody knows of, nothing. Everything was calm. But for some reason, over 100 very large, tall pine trees, some of them Douglas firs, broke off at the ground. There's a video on the website that you can check out. We go into a little more detail about it and show some pictures in case you haven't seen it. But a very interesting story, and again, nobody knows why. What you're looking at here in this picture is a close-up of the, I don't know, pretty much an egg-shaped orb. This one's from England. These have been showing up in a lot of photographs here recently, more so than I can never recall. This one had color, the other one was pure white, and there were two more that were also pure white. This one was orange, and again, it's egg-shaped, so I don't know what these things are, if they're, from an extraterrestrial origin, have no clue. This photograph right here was sent in by a gentleman from Oregon. Sent it in this week. Took the photograph, I don't know, a little while back. But as you can see, some sort of a weird light, looks like a arch or something, goes across the entire horizon. He was mystified by it, so he did a panoramic photo trying to get the entire event in the photograph, which did a great job. But again, this is something that, you just don't see every day. Looks like a giant clamshell in the sky. And I think that's the western horizon. But it looks like a bolt of lightning that travels from north to south, occupying the entire skyline. But it's not. It's just some sort of a random anomaly that, again, you don't see every day. to go back to this one real quick and look at this first one. Pay attention to the orb in the center of the page, or in the center of the photograph. If you look at it closely, you'll see what I mean with regard to the wings. It looks like it has wings that are flapping. This is in the southern hemisphere over the Philippines. Unbelievable. And then it disappeared. Person caught that on video just a few days ago, actually. And if you have pictures or anything that you would like to send in, send them to reports at MrMBB333. Or I'm sorry, reports at MrMBB333.com. Here's the dual orbs from Fort Myers. These were observed. They were visible in the sky. Look at that. They're plain as day. That looks exactly like the one that was witnessed over North Carolina. Exactly. Except in the photograph, obviously it's not moving, but pretty incredible stuff. I'm going to take you guys to the photo gallery here in just a few minutes and share some other amazing photos that were sent in. Probably received over 100 pictures just this week alone. A very unique sky phenomenon that you just simply don't see every day. Some of it you do. We've seen halos and different chemtrails and things like that, but some of the stuff is really good. You guys are wide awake out there. And this one here, this is an orb. It's probably the fourth pretty obvious one that we've seen this week that's tucked in here behind the clouds. And this photograph has not been altered. She circled the area to look in, and there it is. Now here I did alter the contrast just a little bit to kind of bring it out. But yet another one. So these things are being seen all over the world at different times and places. Back to that subwoofer looking photograph again. I still don't know what to think of that. I don't know. I've never seen a photograph quite like that. I don't think these things, according to the person that took the photograph, said these things were visible. They just showed up in the photograph after she took it. She was photographing the moon. And then back to the triangle here, out over South Padre Island, off the coast of Texas. Again, this was yesterday morning. I want to say around 10 a.m. And you can see what looks like a triangle way off in the distance on the horizon above the ocean in a vertical position. I mean, it's a perfect triangle shape that doesn't blend in with the rest of the sky. It's actually dark with respect to the clouds. The clouds are light, this thing is dark, and it's very large. Very large, because it's so far away. There's definitely something going on around our sun. I think there has been for a long time. Too many people are seeing too many things. This picture was taken from Chicago. Alright guys, here we go. I'm going to switch gears. We're going to go to the website. show you some pictures over here. The reason I sound like I'm talking quietly or I sound like I'm tired, it's because the microphone is so incredibly sensitive. The room that I'm in is not soundproof. My voice is deep at times, and if I talk at a certain level, it echoes all over the room and vibrates everything in the room, including the microphone. So I literally have to whisper into the microphone so it doesn't echo the entire room. So that's what I'm doing. That's why I sound maybe tired. I'm not tired. I have to talk quiet because the microphone is so super sensitive. So here we go. I want to show you some things over here on the website. If you haven't checked out the website, by all means do. It's mrmbb333.com. It's a good little hub for information. On the website, we have real-time solar wind data, solar wind speed, the ionosphere, what's going on with it, the magnetosphere, the magnetopause. We've got daily reports. In the daily report section up here at the top in the center of the page, you'll find unique stories there from several different sources. Some of them are a little on the lighter side of life, and then some of them are highly scientific papers that usually arrive here before they make it to the mainstream. So you'll find some interesting content at the daily report up here at the top of the page, right above the real-time solar wind speed and ionosphere data. The sky phenomenon photo gallery. Oh, another thing too. I never really mentioned this, and I suppose I should. Sun frequencies and you. This is a little study that I did. Oh wow, it's been 6 years ago. 6 years ago I did this. You can read about this experiment. It was a learning experience for me at the time, called Sun Frequencies and You. And what I did was I followed patterns and trends, just like I do when I forecast earthquakes. It's all about patterns, trends. And same thing with coronal holes, energy from the sun. I followed patterns and trends amongst people and living organisms on Earth when coronal holes were facing the Earth. How different people reacted, how living creatures behaved, if there were any type of unusual phenomenon associated with the living creatures of Earth, human beings. It was a very in-depth experiment, basically, that I did, not on my own. I had a lot of participants that would, on a daily basis, especially if we were in a high-speed stream of solar wind speed or solar wind from a coronal hole, people shared with me any type of unusual symptoms that they may have been experiencing during that event. And you would be surprised at how many people shared the same symptoms, whether it be overly hungry, believe it or not, was a common one, stiff neck, unusual or disruptive sleep patterns. A lot of it depended on whether you were male or female. We were trying to even dissect it down to your blood type. If your blood type maybe would influence how you felt during a coronal hole event. We learned that coronal holes have an effect on hydrogen atoms, water molecules. So everything on Earth that's a living organism, somewhere along the line, encounters water. So water reacts and water marches to the beat of a drum, basically. It marches to the beat of the sun frequency. So when that frequency changes, so does the frequency of water molecules. That's where it starts to get a little bit complicated, and all of the information was just way too much for one person to try to process, and that person was me. But it was a learning experience. I learned a lot, and I did learn beyond any shadow of a doubt that coronal holes do have an impact on the human being and all living creatures of planet Earth. That is a 100% truth. And whenever you see coronal holes facing the Earth, pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to your sleep patterns. Pay attention to your eating patterns, and you'll see trends. You will discover unique trends that only occur during coronal hole events that are facing planet Earth. So it's kind of an interesting study, but again, it's a lot of information. And in order to do it right, in all fairness, you have to consider where you live on Earth, your age, the chromosome type, whether you're male or female, your blood type, your diet, what you eat or drink, the soil content, where you live, whether you live in a place that's got a lot of iron content in the ground, a lot of copper content in the ground, a lot of granite. All of that makes a difference. Those are variables that have to be considered. Whether you live by the ocean, whether you live in the desert, whether you live by a busy freeway in a large city, or whether you live out in the rural part of the country that you live in by a farm. All of that stuff is factored into the equation. So the equation gets really big. It gets kind of complicated, but it can be figured out, but it would take more than just one person, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, the Sky Phenomenon photo gallery is updated on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And you know what? I can't thank you guys enough for sharing these photos with us here. And I've still got some that I'm working on that I have to resize to put on here, but they will all be on the photo gallery here eventually, probably by the end of the day. The photos that you guys have shared, and they are incredible. You guys have a really keen eye for just cool stuff in the atmosphere, period. You do a great job. You notice these sun anomalies, different types of structures in the clouds, obviously these chemtrails. For those of us that are awake, I've been following chemtrails for, probably 9-10 years before they were chemtrails. And back then I was laughed at because they were vapor trails. Well, vapor trails don't linger in the sky for an entire afternoon. So now these things are, people are awake and more aware of the chemtrail phenomenon. And another thing you'll notice is the chemtrails are generally, but not always, but they're generally in the proximity of the sun, or at least in the southern part of the sky, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, just like the other day, there was a giant grid sprayed over our community out here in southeast Phoenix. And it looked something like, let me see if I can find it real quick. A young lady by the name of Melanie took a really good picture of what was a grid in the sky over our community. So you got to ask yourself, why are we spraying grids? What would be at least a good theory? Why would they spray a grid? Is that a target for somebody to look at that's maybe looking down on Earth, or is it something that... Here's one aspect that I have of this phenomenon. Here's one look at this grid. It's quite large, and there was actually more than one square. There were multiple squares in the sky that day that formed a grid. But I'm going to share something with you that it's just a way that I look at these things sometimes, and I'm talking about chemtrails. And I've looked at them for a long time, for many years, and I've considered dozens of scenarios. And then something will come along, and then I'll maybe think of another possible scenario. Here's another picture here, and you can see that these lines are strategically positioned in the sky. I don't think that this is done randomly. And these photos were taken 3 days ago from out here in southeast Phoenix. And you can see if you look real close, over here at about the 8 o'clock position, you can see what looks like, yet again, a small dark orb. But this is not done by accident. These are put there for a reason. That reason, none of us really know for sure. One thing I like to consider, you can see that the sun is over here on the left-hand side, up here around the 10, 11 o'clock position. What if these things were filling a breach, a area of the ozone that had temporarily breached? And I think that's something that's a very strong possibility based off of the studies that we've done with regard to UV. We took UV readings last summer every day all summer long, and one thing we noticed was the UV would fluctuate from the same locations, and the weather may be the same. The conditions would be clear, sunny, and the sun would be in the solar noon position. That's when we would try to take the UV readings at the same time each day. And the conditions could be the same, and we would take the readings at the same time. But the UV one day might be, 12, and then the next day be 8. And the conditions would be exactly the same, and it would be taken at the same exact time. And then we also learned that places like Philadelphia, of all places, of the team that we had assembled, there was probably 10 or 11 of us, I think, at one time, that took UV readings from different locations across the country and around the world. Philadelphia had the highest recorded UV reading the whole year, at least with respect to our UV team. And that was in fact, the whole world with respect to our team. There were probably higher UV readings elsewhere in the world, we just didn't know about it. But the ones that we documented, the highest UV reading came from Philadelphia, which was totally bizarre because you would have thought the higher UV readings would have been out here in the desert. And I did have readings of over 12. I think I had a reading once of 13 plus, which is above extreme, but a 14. And the 14, it was actually 14 plus, it was observed on a partly cloudy day. So go figure, So it makes me wonder if, that's when we kind of started tossing around the idea that maybe, just maybe, there is a wandering breach or breaches in the ozone layer, and that these are some sort of an attempt to fill in the breaches of the ozone so that the UV can be slowed down or maybe temporarily absorbed by whatever these lines are. You have to at least consider that. Maybe the alternative is worse. Have you ever thought of that? Maybe the alternative is worse. Because any planet, if you look at our planet as a whole, if we have to spray chemicals in the atmosphere on a global scale pretty much every day, then something's not right. We shouldn't have to do that. Unless they're trying to block something from coming in. What would be the purpose of just running around spraying chemicals? I mean, they've been doing it for a long time now. Sometimes I think that it's to slow down ultraviolet radiation, and that's just the theory that I'm sticking with right now. But back to the pictures. You guys have sent in some incredible pictures. I want to thank you again. I can't thank you enough. This is something I really look forward to, is the pictures that you guys see, because what it does, it gives us all, and we can put these pictures here in one place in this sky phenomenon photo gallery, and it kind of puts into perspective what's going on around the world. We can see what's going on in Phoenix, Kentucky, Oregon, Florida, England, Kuwait City, Australia, Ecuador, Brazil, New Zealand, Scotland, Ireland. I'm talking Texas. Fascinating. You guys really do a tremendous job. Iowa, Idaho, Hawaii, all over the globe. And you guys keep them coming. Keep them coming. Here's another example of these chemtrails. I call them skylines, call them chemtrails. They obviously are not water vapor. They would dissipate in 15 seconds, but there's an extreme example right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a fifth one going across the center. And I think that one was from Arizona. Here's another extreme example. Look at that. How could anybody not notice that? And with regard to the sun, it's right in the proximity of the sun. So I try to look at this optimistically. Maybe it's an attempt to slow down extreme UV, because let's face it, extreme UV could be very harmful to crops. If they damaged a lot of crops and damaged the food supply, well, then by default, that's going to disrupt the food chain of not only humans, but all creatures on Earth. So that's one reason I look at it that way, because the alternative may be worse, if they didn't do this. Maybe the sun's going through some sort of a phase right now. Maybe the ozone layer does have these wandering breaches. That's what determines where they spray these chemtrails, wherever the breach is most prominent. And that's what these things possibly do, reflect and or absorb extreme ultraviolet radiation. I've seen firsthand what the ultraviolet radiation can do with regard to trees and bushes that at sunset, believe it or not, was the worst time. Sunset was the only time this bush and tree in the front of the house, actually the sunlight totally killed the bush and the neighbor's tree. And the only time they got sunlight was at sunset. So I'm just saying, guys, there's a lot of things that I've considered before I came to that conclusion. It wasn't just something that I just, let's just, say it's the UV. Did a lot of studying before I came to that conclusion. But that doesn't mean that my conclusion is right or any better than anybody else's. It's just that based off of what I've studied, to me, that's what makes the most sense right now. That could be changed. There were some other things that I wanted to show you guys real quick. Here's some. I don't know if this is maybe just because of the angle of the sun, but there's a pink grid. That was the first time I'd ever seen a pink grid. Seen pink skies, red skies here out of New York. That's looking to the northeast. Again, that's from New York, and that was taken in either early 2017 or late 2016. Rhea from Canada. Good look at the sun hiding behind the clouds. I had another picture that was an excellent example, and I don't know if it's in here or if it's one that I have to resize. A man sent me a picture of the sun, and it kind of reminded me of this one here, but there was a big body of water here in the front, and it showed dual suns in the water reflecting, but yet one sun in the sky. Very interesting photograph. What I'll do is I'll try to find that, and I'll post it either on my Facebook or Twitter page, but it's probably in here somewhere. But there's so many pictures that are starting to accumulate, and that's a good thing. Keep them coming. Look at this here. Looks like a human in the sky. That was over Southern California. That was sent in about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I think. Another example of extreme chemtrailing in the front of the sun. That's just a lens flare. It's not anything. I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking for that photograph that guy sent in that shows a dual sunset in the ocean. It's actually really, really cool. But I don't see it right offhand. Here's another example of. This is from Ireland. See how we can look at these things from all around the world? They're doing the same thing in Ireland that they're doing in Arizona and Missouri and Florida. Look at that big grid over Ireland. That picture is not that old. Our friend Mark from Australia capturing the full moon supermoon eclipse of January 31st, 2018. Excellent shot there from Australia, our friend Mark. Lisa from Kentucky shared this photo about 2 weeks ago. Looks like a electric jellyfish or something in the sky, right? She did not see this. It showed up in her photograph. She was actually taking a picture of the sun. And this is from Louisville, Kentucky. Lisa took this photograph. Clearly something in the sky there that's it's got uniform light patterns, cluster of lights in the center. Almost looks like it's got extremities back here in the back, maybe 6 or 8. Really cool photo, and that one was captured by total accident. She didn't see it. Just looking at some more of these really cool pics that you guys have sent in. This one's from last year. Kay Pellet sent that in. I think that might be from Alaska. Julie from Tennessee. Nice shot of the moon. All right, here we go. Fort Myers, Florida. I was looking for this one here. These objects were observed like the object that was videoed over North Carolina. They're almost a perfect match. These things are showing up in the skies of planet Earth. They've probably been here for a long time. We're just now starting to see them. Or we've gotten lucky and people have seen these close together and just happened to be able to catch them on film. But this was a still photograph from Florida near the Fort Myers area, and those look identical to the one that the young lady captured on video from Concord, North Carolina. Looks like a white oval type of in this case there's 2 objects, and those were real. Those are physical structures that were in the sky. That is not a reflection of any kind. They saw these things in the sky. That one there looks like it's got something green on it. In fact, they both do. That is a volcano from Guatemala. Edward in North Arizona sent this photo in a couple of days ago, and you can see the different colors in the background, but there's some unique little objects up here too at the 11 o'clock position. I'm just going to take a little closer look at it, put it in the movie maker where you can really adjust the contrast and flip from negative to different formats and things like that, and it really pulls out things that you just don't normally see. Here's another one. This is Edward from North Arizona, and you can see there's purposely something put in the proximity of the sun. It's blocking sunlight. This is from Dana Huber out of Montana, and this is a plane in action. You got all four, maybe more. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 2 on each wing, going full speed ahead. So that just tells you that there's something that's off with the atmosphere, man. We shouldn't have to do that. That is a really neat picture there. Double sky beams coming off of what looks like a hornet's nest, even though it's just a cloud. But really cool picture. I mean, you guys are excellent. You have good eyes for detail, and like I said, keep the pictures coming. That's something that I look forward to every day, to see what you are seeing in other parts of the world. I try to share with you what we're seeing out here in Arizona. Here lately, we've been seeing some chemtrails in the sky. In fact, quite a few. They've been doing the grids. We've been seeing actually like a beam or something that kind of looks like this picture here. See the beam in the sky? In fact, I think I took that picture last year. That happens every once in a while. I don't know if it's got something to do with the angle of the line, the trail in the sky with respect to the sun and the aircraft. Do see this phenomenon every once in a while. Saw it again a couple of days ago. It's just kind of weird, that's all. But there are all kinds of excellent, and I mean excellent, photographs in here, and I want to thank you guys sincerely for sharing these photos. And like I said, keep them coming. Send them to reports at mrmbb333.com, and I will get them in the Sky Phenomenon photo gallery. And there's other things too here at the website. If you want to check on here, CO and CO2 data, there you go, up to the minute, real time, and you can tell right now in the New York area. Kind of got some CO issues. Normally you'll see it around densely populated areas unless there's a wildfire going on. To the best of my knowledge, there are no wildfires right now in the New York area. This is not uncommon, but it's not real common to see it that dense. So those numbers are relatively high, all things considered. And that's the CO2 data, and that's real time. You can click right there on that tab. Fire in the Sky News. Astromonics, that's something that I'm still working on. That's a field of study that's very complex. There's not a lot of information on that. That's just something that I've named it. It's got a lot to do with the frequencies of the spheres in our solar system. Those spheres being the planets. Each planet has a unique frequency. Without the proper equipment, it's kind of hard to ascertain what that frequency is. But one thing we do know is they all do carry a unique frequency. And those frequencies are how planets kind of communicate with each other. Not literally, but they know where each other's at with respect to their position in the cosmos. They share a common bond, and that's the sun. If they didn't share a common bond, they wouldn't be here. So they generate a frequency based off of what the sun is doing. If the sun is going into grand solar minimum, then the spheres are going to act a little differently. Word is that if we go into grand solar minimum, that the Earth may go into a mini ice age. And the data kind of points to that, right? Is that what the data tells us? You know, none of us were here during the last grand solar minimum, so maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. There could be other factors involved. You know, just because the sun goes into a grand solar minimum doesn't mean it's gospel that we're going to enter a mini ice age. We could go into a series of weather extremes. You know, they just had an overnight low of 70 degrees last night in South Carolina. That was a record. An overnight low of 70 degrees. So I think, if anything, one thing's for sure, we're already seeing extreme weather conditions. And that's an example. When you have an overnight low of 70 degrees in the middle of winter, then, you know, that's not, you know, concrete mini ice age. That's definite proof of weather extremes. We are seeing climate chaos all over the globe. So, and if it's echoing, guys, it's because I'm changing pages for whatever reason. When I change a page, you're going to hear an echo. That's just the way it is. Let's change a page again, and we'll see if it echoes again. Okay, you can click on the ionosphere. Here you go, real-time solar wind speed. That's the second tab right in the upper left-hand part of the website. 6-hour data, 2-hour data. Click on the SDO here, and that takes you to the SDO spacecraft, and you can view the sun in multiple frequencies. Of course, the sky phenomenon photo gallery, that's probably one of my favorites, but I check this data every day, multiple times a day, and it's something that I've done for years. With regard to solar wind speed, the ionosphere, the SDO instrument, let's just click on it and see. What I use this for primarily is to monitor coronal holes. And I've used this thing a lot since it was, I think it was put into orbit in 2009. And you can see here there's a coronal hole turning towards the Earth. It will be facing Earth probably by the end of the day today. The energy from that coronal hole will not reach the Earth, and again, it depends on the speed of the stream, the solar wind speed coming out of the coronal hole. It depends on the speed, but that should reach Earth by, okay, today's the 11th, probably by the 13th, the evening or the afternoon of the 13th, and that flash you see is actually the moon. See it right there? That was the moon. The moon does travel between the Earth and the sun. This instrument does not orbit the sun. It orbits the sun with the Earth. It's a great instrument. I've used this for years, and I've learned a lot from this instrument. And the sun is an ever-changing ball of energy. I know there's a lot of speculation that the sun is now a solar simulator, that, you know, the sun is gone, and to the best of my knowledge, I couldn't argue with you. You know, if you think it's a simulator, then, you know, maybe you have information that I don't. But I've studied the sun for many years. I've tracked solar flares that have produced CMEs, and I've calculated their arrival at the Earth based off of observations that I made at this instrument and the SOHO LASCO C2 and LASCO C3 instruments. And the data, you know, what I saw actually arrived at Earth and created geomagnetic storms. I don't know how a solar simulator would create a geomagnetic storm on Earth, unless that's manufactured too, but it just seems like an awful lot of trouble just to trick people, you know. Let's click on the daily report. Let's see what the daily report's got to offer today. You'll find something new and interesting every day, multiple times a day. Weather chaos, heavy snow in the UK. The Met Office issues weather warnings. Heavy snow across the UK, dangerous ice could disrupt travel. You've got the International Space Station, daily report. You've got new images reveal how the ears sensory, uh, how the ears work. There's a new study that tells you about the human ear. Device that measures cell strength could help identify um, possible cures for asthma and hypertension. Space and time. Astrophysicists settle cosmic debate on magnetism of planets and stars. Story dated February the 9th. February the 8th, they found a new planet. Earth sized, actually, it's a little bigger than the Earth. A little bigger than the Earth, but they can't tell for sure if it's rocky or grass or gassy. And then here's a story here about Nibiru to appear in 2018. So, like I said, some of these stories are extremely scientific. You'll find some papers in here that come straight from the Academy of Sciences, and then some other that are extremely theoretical. But there's a lot of good information here at this website. And again, I highly recommend bookmarking this site, stopping by once a day, and check it out. It's a good little hub for information. Like I said, solar data, real time, up to the minute, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the Sky Phenomenon Photo Gallery, guys, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate those sky photos. And something else that we're watching too, and I don't put the photos here at the Sky Phenomenon Photo Gallery because this is what it is. It's Sky Phenomenon. Every once in a while, I'll put something in that may not be directly related to the sky, but it's the water phenomenon. If you guys see coastal or river water levels that are extremely low, and it's not too much of an inconvenience, please take a photograph and share it with us at reports at mrmbb333.com. I have assembled a map. I've started this process of putting all of these anomalies on a global map. I'm actually going to make two maps. I'm going to put one of those maps right here on the website, and it will be updated as the data comes in. So if you say spot a low river up in upstate New York or Southern California, maybe a coastal water anomaly in San Diego. We just saw one here, I think it was this week. I'm going to have the map here on the home page, or I will have a link to the map, and I will keep the map updated like we do the Sky Phenomenon Photo Gallery with all of the known, and that's something that I can't emphasize enough, of the known water anomalies. Catherine just shared with me a story out of Greece, and this was one that I did not know about, and I could not find any news stories about it. But there was a water retreat event that occurred in Greece on February the 4th, which was like a week ago, and people were mystified that saw it. People had lived there along those islands and along that coast. There's many islands off the coast of Greece, but there was one area in particular where water had just completely disappeared. It came back, but fact remains they'd never seen it before. But I could not find any stories on it whatsoever. So if you hear of any of those types of stories, like Catherine did, please share it with me. I appreciate it. And we'll put it on the map. And we'll try to make sense of what's going on with these water anomalies, and we'll pay attention to patterns and trends, right? That's how we learn, by observing patterns and trends. It's one of the things that I've done for over 10 years now, is I've observed trends and patterns before, during, and after large earthquakes. And they're not always 100% in line with each other, but there are certain things that that happen prior to big earthquakes. And again, it's not 100% of the time, but there are certain things that come together. And when I see those things start to assimilate, then that's when I do earthquake watches. So the earthquake watch, guys, that's something that I don't do very often. I do earthquake watches maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Is my model perfect? Absolutely not. In fact, according to, you know, the experts, I don't. It's technically, I guess, impossible to predict earthquakes. But again, it goes back to what I just said. Look for trends and patterns, and if you follow it long enough, like in my case, for 10 years, you notice trends and you notice patterns. That's all. It's not that I'm sitting here rubbing some magic ball, looking into a crystal ball, saying, "Oh, there's going to be an earthquake in, you know, Santiago, Chile." It's not like that. It's based off of patterns and trends. And if you research earthquakes and look at all of the known earthquakes that have ever been recorded in modern history, and even not so modern, and look at things that were going on at those moments in time, and take notes, and like the map that we're putting together of the water anomalies, after you get enough data, then you can start to learn something. That's how they program artificial intelligence. They give it enough data to where it starts to learn, from patterns and trends. Simple as that. So, but there's a lot of things going on right now, guys, and it's seems like it's increasing. Like the event up in Washington State on the 27th. What took those trees down? That is a highly mysterious event, and it is unprecedented. A 70 or an 80 mile an hour wind gust, a Douglas fir, it wouldn't even bother a twig on a Douglas fir. It would take winds that we've never even heard of before to knock down a Douglas fir like those were knocked down. They weren't uprooted, they were broken off at the ground. A mighty Douglas fir. And it wasn't just Douglas firs. There were many kinds of trees up there, but some that were in the photographs that the articles were not mentioning, they were just kind of vaguely brushing the entire scenario with just trees. They weren't just trees. Those were Douglas firs, man. Those are big boys. And it took something incredibly strong to do what it did. Unbelievable. Registered on the seismographs up there. I mean, and it wasn't an earthquake. What the seismograph picked up was the energy from those trees falling to the ground, like the mighty Douglas fir. You saw how big just one was? And it looked like they probably, according to the seismograph, all fell at the same time. And then the seismograph picked it up and it left what looked like an earthquake signature. But it wasn't an earthquake. So, it was a unprecedented event, and what's even more unprecedented in my mind is we don't know what caused it. With all of the technology that we have today and the thousands of satellites that we have monitoring the Earth 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, something had to have noticed an anomaly up there in northwestern Washington on the night of January 27th. Something had to have been detected. It's mind-boggling that something had that kind of strength and it went unnoticed, except for the next day when they saw the trees laying on the ground. Absolutely incredible. And I just got an email a couple hours ago about sonic booms being heard in the upper northeast, in the northeast part of the United States. And it's being dismissed as some sort of a drill or something. And the people said that heard it and lived near the area said there's no way that they lived next to the area that they said they had a drill or something, and it was louder farther away. So sonic booms are being heard. Had a video report someone shared from a video camera from somewhere in northern Mississippi, and they were hearing loud booms and flashes of light in the sky. And I think maybe that may have been the thunderstorms that were rolling through the Florida Panhandle last night, but I could be wrong. I have to look into it a little closer. But you could definitely hear rumbling, loud noises in the background, and there were no immediate thunderstorms in the person that was filming the video in their area. It was quite a distance away, but wouldn't surprise me because people are hearing these sonic booms. A gentleman just sent me an email about 4 days ago. Lives north of me by 1 hour, up near Sedona, Arizona. And he said something hit his house in the middle of the afternoon. It made a loud noise, and his house shook. So, I mean, these are occurrences that are they're just mind-boggling, man. It's just, I don't know. But they're occurring, and what we could do about it, as members of Earth, we share this place. It's our home. If we want to understand and know the truth about what these things are, we start collecting data. And when you put data in a centralized location, you'd be amazed if you stick with it and collect data over a long period of time. You can learn. Yeah, that's how you learn. It's not like school. School is you get good at memorizing things. When you're learning out in the field like this, and you're doing things and you're not afraid to make a mistake, and remember this, when you're trying to learn, it's okay to make mistakes. When you make a mistake or you do something wrong, it wasn't lost time. You learned how not to do it. Just always remember that. Don't be afraid to be wrong. It's okay. You just learned something. As long as you learned something, it was a positive. It was time that was not wasted. You learned how not to do it. It's just as simple as that. So like with the sonic booms, for instance, if we put together a map, like I'm doing the map with the water anomalies, maybe we could notice a pattern. Pay attention to the moon and what's going on, in your localized communities and stuff like that. Like here, we're collecting pictures from all corners of the earth. And, maybe we'll start to notice trends. Well, they're spraying in California and they were spraying in Vancouver, Canada. They were spraying in Mexico, all along the western coast, but they weren't spraying in, let's say, Minnesota and Florida. Maybe we could learn something if we pay attention to what's going on in the cosmos. Maybe pay attention to the UV, what time of year it is, whether it's winter, summer, spring, or fall, the angle of the sun. Are there volcanoes erupting? What's the pollution level in Los Angeles compared to, Baja, Mexico? There's all kinds of variables, but we could learn. You can learn a lot from just making a map, collecting pictures, collecting data, and stay at it every day. That's what I've done with my earthquake predictions. I don't predict earthquakes. I don't predict earthquakes anyway. I forecast earthquakes a couple of times a year, maybe 3 times. But I have to see certain criteria before I do. It's not something I do every week for fun. It's not like that. I've researched every large earthquake above 7.0 magnitude that's ever been recorded on your planet. Every single one. And that's the truth. Every single one. its geographical location, the time of day it occurred, what month, what day, where the planets were at the time of the earthquake, how deep the earthquake was. Every piece of data I could get on that event, I wrote it down. And then I started comparing things. And then guess what? I noticed trends and I noticed patterns. Hello? It's not rocket science. It's a will. It's something that I wanted to do and I wanted to learn. That's all. You're not going to find this in textbooks. You have to want to learn how to do it. And if you really want to learn how to do it, you can do it. I don't care what it is. If you really want to, you can do it. But the really challenging things, a lot of that stuff, it's not in textbook because there's just too much disagreement on it. But I just did it on my own. So, and it's not 100% perfect, and it probably never will be, because Earth is in a constant state of motion. It's constantly changing. Earth is constantly accumulating weight. That's something else that you kind of have to consider. I mean, it collects cosmic dust 24 hours a day, and eventually that turns into measurable weight. So anyway, guys, I'm just kind of rambling here, but I did want to focus on the website, bookmark it, check it out every day. And again, if you have pictures to send in of the sky or something that you think's worthy of sharing, by all means, send it in to reports at mrmbb333.com. I greatly appreciate all of the pictures that have been sent in, and please keep them coming. They will go in the Sky Phenomenon photo gallery, possibly in a video. Just depends on what the topics are for that day or that week, but as you can see, the library is growing daily. Oh, and another thing too, before I forget, I just happened to see one right here. This one's also out of Oregon. It seems like there's a lot of observant people in Oregon. This is a white sign. It's a do not enter sign. It's supposed to be red and white. As you can see, it's nearly pure white. Eric noticed this from Salem, Oregon. This sign faces west. And if you see signs like this, and it seems like it's affecting street signs in communities that face west, south, or east. And it seems like this phenomenon that you're seeing, when a street sign turns just snow white, it happens rather quickly. So again, this goes back to my theory on a possible ozone breach. Does that make sense now? What if the ozone had a temporary breach in it for, say, even 5 minutes, and a pinhole of extreme UV came through, and that sign just happened to be in the way, and it took the color out of the sign in a matter of just seconds, maybe minutes? Because you'll see signs, I've seen many, trust me, that have came in. You'll see signs that may have a curve or a bend or something in it where it casts a shadow across the color, and the color that's in the shadow remains. So that tells me that it's definitely light, because the rest of the sign will be pure white. Wherever there's a shadow across the sign, it doesn't affect the color. So if you see any of these signs in your day-to-day travels, when you're out and about, if you see signs like that, by all means, send them in. And that's what I said earlier. Some of these pictures are not related to a sky phenomenon. I have put a few of these pictures in here because that's something else that I do look out for, and that goes into my UV study. Here's another one here. This is a pure white stop sign in New Mexico. And these are, again, guys, these are, I've had people send these in from Germany, from Switzerland, from Austria, South America. Our friend Jose out of Ecuador. I've got them from Austria and Australia. I think I mentioned that one already. But all over the globe, all over North America, Canada, Idaho. I don't have all of those pictures on here. In fact, I put maybe 3 or 4, I think, that I had in this one particular folder, but we've got a folder that has an entire collection of this phenomenon. It's a different type of phenomenon, but I think it's related to the UV. Okay, and that's why I've come to the conclusion that I have. And again, it's not 100% conclusive. You know, my mind could change if I see other criteria come along. But based off of the things that I've studied and learned over the years, these white signs being one of them, that tells me that there's something getting through the ozone that's not supposed to be. Because in all reality, when you see, like right here, for instance, here you go. Here's a perfect example. We've got 2 like this right down the street. Technically, there's no stop sign there. It's white, it's just a white sign. So in all reality, there's no stop sign there. Look at that. Pure white. So I guess in theory, you could go right through this stop sign, even though it would be a good idea, wouldn't be safe, but you couldn't get a ticket because there's no sign there. So that tells me that this is happening very quickly, because I think there's city managers and stuff that drive around. They probably have weekly, if not weekly, maybe monthly routes that they run around and inspect, drive around and inspect intersections for make sure that all the lights are working properly, and you physically observe street signs. You know, make sure that some haven't been damaged or whatever. It's part of the overall success of a community. You have to have things in position to, you know, eliminate chaos. If you didn't have stop signs or stoplights and things like that, then your community is not going to run very smoothly. And in this case here, there's no stop sign there. So what made the stop sign turn white? You know, did it just get old? It's not that old. You can tell by looking at the pole it's not that old. Look at that pole. The pole looks fairly new. Look at that. That's not that old. Doesn't even have any rust on it. I mean, it's galvanized, but still, poles like that show signs of age, just like everything else does. That looks like a fairly new pole. But look at the sign. It's pure white. Look at the direction it's facing. South, right at the sun. So the sun took the color. That's just the way I see it. The sun took the color, the UV. But if the sky is full of chemtrails and it's trying to maybe absorb some of that UV, that's why I said, you know, maybe the alternative is worse. That's why I said that. Okay, so I don't just say those things just for something to say. It's because of something that I've studied over the past 10 years and seen a pattern. I've seen trends of things that just do not make any sense. You know, I can remember playing as a kid outside. Growing up, that's what we did. We spent our entire summer vacation outside. We played outside. Grew up, you know, fishing. I was outside all the time. I never once in my travels ever saw a white stop sign, no matter how old it was. It could be old, it may be faded a little, and I'm talking just a little, but to go pure white, that's extreme. That's a very extreme event. And the only thing that I can think of that would cause that would be ultraviolet light. So it's just a theory. I don't know exactly what's causing that phenomenon. All I know is it's happening. And there's really no reason to do a map on that one and try to triangulate that phenomenon, because it's happening global. I can tell you that. And what else happens global? On a daily basis, something that happens every single day on Earth that's global, touches every centimeter of the Earth. sunlight. So that's global too. So those two go kind of hand in hand, you know. That's a global phenomenon. Sunlight touches the earth every single day, the entire earth. And those signs like that are being discovered all over the entire earth. So it's got to be the sunlight. Here's another example of extreme UV. This came from Florida. Young lady noticed this sign was burnt black, and it wasn't from any type of fire or anything. This is a sign on the side of a building that's advertising food. And half the sign is not even legible. Faces into the direct sunlight. The color is gone. You can't read the sign. I've seen examples of that too out here. White signs that are up on buildings, like banners that are made out of I don't know, it's a man-made material, some sort of like a, I don't know, 6mm plastic type of banners. You guys have all seen them. Well, nowadays, they don't last very long. This is out of Florida. This picture is actually probably about 3 years old. So this has been going on for a little bit. It hasn't something that's just started. We've been observing this, kind of making the connection with possible UV. That's why we started measuring UV. We are looking for extreme UV because of things just like that. So when I see these things in the sky after I've seen signs that instantly turn white for no reason, and the only thing they do is stand outside all day long and face the sun, then I have to assume that more than likely the extreme sunlight took the color from the sign. And you guys can all relate to the sun feels different now. I know it feels different compared to when I was a kid playing outside all the time. I mean, now you're looking for shade after about 10 minutes. It's just not comfortable. I've heard of people getting sunburnt in their car while they're driving. Their legs are exposed to the sun, like coming through the driver's side window. And if they were driving for an extended period of time, whether it be, I think typically westbound, and the southern sunlight was coming into their driver's side window of the car, I've heard of people actually getting sunburnt from driving the car. Say what? So pretty crazy stuff. Seeing these blanket type of clouds too. I've gotten 4, maybe 5 photos of this exact photo. It looks like a turtle. Looks like turtle skin in the sky. And again, it's in the proximity of the sun. So that tells us that, okay, there's something either going on with the sun or the Earth's atmosphere near the sun. You know, something in that line of fire in that area. And I've seen pictures from Louisiana, and I think maybe England, and another place where the sky looks exactly like this here. I think this picture was taken by Norma. I get a lot of these pictures. Yeah, Norma from North Carolina. That's where this photo was from. It's not that old. What else do I have? The Thunderbird. We were talking about this a couple of days ago. You know, this flew over a racetrack in Austin, Texas, back late last year, and it cast a big shadow on the ground. The Thunderbird is if you do a little research on it, it's actually something that the Native Americans that lived here years ago, that's what they built their totem poles around, was the giant Thunderbird bird. And it wasn't because of something that they just imagined up. They actually saw these things. Well, then once we started urbanizing North America, these birds disappeared. Didn't mean that they left. They just disappeared away from humans. Do you know how easy it would be for these birds to avoid humans? It'd be simple. So to say that they don't exist is a little bit naive considering these things can fly at tremendous heights to where nobody can see them. They can land on mountains. In fact, they like to build their nests high up in mountains where we don't go. Think about it. You're not out climbing 8,000-foot mountains every day that have no roads. They go where there's no roads. We don't. They don't hang out in the city. So, yeah, these things are probably all over the place. And the only time that we see them, or even a shadow of them, is if they're out looking for food. So just because you haven't seen one, you got to keep in mind, you don't go where they go. They stay away from humans. Simple as that. So I've read too many stories of people that have eyewitness accounts of having encounters with those large birds. So that's just something I put on here just as a conversation piece. That's all. But yeah, I definitely think they exist, and they've existed for a long time, and they haven't necessarily gone extinct. They've just gotten away from humans. And they can do it very easily because they can fly and we can't. So if you could fly, you could do a lot of things, and it wouldn't be hard to stay away from any city because you would definitely have the advantage because you could see everything below you. So if you knew you had to go right, you could just make a small turn and you're up in the top of the mountains, and nobody would know any different. But anyway, guys, I've got about 5 minutes left here. This picture here come from Lake Erie. It looks like some sort of a diamond, or what was a craft in the sky. This was above Lake Erie a few weeks back. Pretty obvious there was something there, but don't know exactly what. That's why we call it unknown sky phenomenon. Wish I could find that picture. There was a really good picture. This one was sent to me by Ken. This is from a webcam in Mexico, and it's a sunset. A lot of cool webcams at webcamsdemexico.com. Really good site. But anyway, you can catch a lot of really cool sunrises and sunsets. And this is one of those sunsets. It's kind of unique, but the picture that I wanted to share with you guys showed a sunset, or it was on its way to being a sunset. And the sun was up here. It had a partial halo around the sun, okay? Over here on the right was what they call sundogs, like a little rainbow over here to the right. Well, you could see that casted a shadow, or not a shadow, but a reflection in the water. And you could see a reflection of the sun in the water. But you could also see a second sun, plain as day. And only one of the sundogs off to the right. Two suns. So, are there two suns? Could be. What's so crazy about it, you know? There might be three. Who's to say? I mean, I don't see why it's so far-fetched. You know, everything likes a companion, you know, even stars. I think that's what makes them work. They gotta have a companion. I don't necessarily think it's as easy as necessarily going out and taking a picture and boom, there you go. You've got two suns. I think it involves some pretty complicated math. I think this guy sent this because that looks like a big dragonfly or something. But anyway, it's a unique picture. But I think that it involves some complicated math. But I do think it's there. I really do. Like this image here. It's a really cool image from the 125th floor of the Burj Khalifa over in Dubai. And it definitely looks like dual suns from 125 stories in the air. Is it? It sure looks like it, but I wasn't there. I didn't take the picture. I didn't, see it. But from the photograph that I received, yeah, that's exactly what the photograph is showing us. And we see a lot of photographs of what look like dual suns. And I'm a firm believer that the sun has a companion. Yes, I am. But I'm a math guy. I'm a patterns guy, and I'm a trends guy. I've got to see trends. I've got to see patterns. And I got to have some math.
and it just takes a long time. I think there's a lot of evidence that says that we have a second sun, but it takes some tough math. Trust me, guys, on that. But this is where this photograph was taken, right up here, looking west towards the sunset as it was setting in the western sky. And that is an absolutely magnificent engineering marvel here in Dubai. Unbelievable. You guys have definitely outdone yourselves with that piece of craftsmanship. Good job. Did it capture a dual sun? Sure looks like it at sunset, because if you'll notice, there wasn't anything being sprayed in the sky to block your view. That's another thing that I noticed. So maybe the person did catch something there. I don't know. It sure looks like it. I do believe we have a second sun. Absolutely. But is that conclusive proof? It sure looks like it, but I don't know. I still think it involves a lot of complicated math. You've got to look at history very, very strongly. You have to consider so many variables that I think you could figure it out. Yeah, if there's a will, there's definitely, you could do it. It'd take a team of very smart people. Not necessarily that you don't have to be smart. You just got to be determined. And you got to have the instruments. That's one thing. I did a fundraiser a while back for a induction magnometer. And in fact, right there, the old magnometer. If you've got the magnometer, you've got something there. You can listen to what's going on around your planet, and it doesn't lie. You can track comets with that. Now here's something here. What I mean by tracking comets with that, you can track the electromagnetic discharge of the comet by listening to it. See here, this looks like the moon, and what we have is more than likely a reflection, because that's not the sun. Looks like a moon. So I'm assuming, or maybe it was this that they saw.
Okay, now I'll have to ask, but that was Demetrius from Delaware. You asked Demetrius what exactly was that photo about, because I think that's a reflection, but maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, here we go. Here's another dual sun. And this one's at ground level. The ones that I showed you from Dubai were 125 floors up in that very tall tower. This one you're looking at is from ground level. A few clouds in the air, but not enough to completely block the view. And it does appear that there is something, but in all my years, I've never seen anything that quite that good. I've never photographed, and I photographed the sun quite a bit with the proper equipment.
And then sometimes just a random photograph here and there without, but I've photographed the sun so many times with different filters and different types of even welding glasses to try to minimize the extreme light saturation to possibly see. And I've done it many times at many different times of the day, different times of the year. So the sun's at a different angle, so you can get a different perspective. And I've never seen anything quite like that. I've seen a lot of reflections. I've seen about every reflection possible, but I've never seen one quite that good. These were some extremely colorful clouds, and those were taken from right out here in Arizona about 2 months ago. And then the full moon, supermoon, total eclipse. That was the most colorful total eclipse I'd ever witnessed. And this photograph is as is. And this is a photograph that I took at, I think it was 4:45 in the morning when I took this photograph, maybe 5 a.m. once it reached total eclipse here in the state of Arizona, southeast Phoenix. It was the most colorful by far. It was the best one I'd ever seen. Full moon, supermoon. And right after, actually before, during, and after that event, the weather down in New Zealand and Australia definitely felt the effects of the full moon, supermoon, because they had extreme weather during this full moon, supermoon, and they had extreme weather during the full moon, supermoon of December of 2017. Same exact thing. Same exact thing. The only thing different in 2017 was there was no total eclipse. It was a full moon, supermoon, and they had extreme flooding, extreme winds, and very high waves in Australia and New Zealand. January of 2018, same exact thing. Both places, Australia, New Zealand, extreme weather before, during, and right after the full moon, supermoon. So yes, it definitely has an effect on the weather, and it didn't take long to make that connection because it happened so quickly. Other things may take years of observations, to where that one, what did it take, a couple months? 2 and 2 equaled 4. There was no doubt. It definitely affected the weather. And we know the moon affects the earth. It affects the tides every minute of every day. So you got to ask yourself, what's affecting the extreme low tides that we're seeing right now? It's not the moon. The moon's always done a pretty good job of keeping balance of the high tides and low tides. Something's coming along and influencing the tides and making these low tides go out extremely far. So it's behaving like a moon, right? It's behaving like a moon? But is it a moon? That's why I wanted to show you guys the picture that I shared with you here. That looked like a moon, and it was only visible in infrared. This was in the southern hemisphere, and this was an option that I had tossed around with another gentleman about a possibility of something orbiting the planet like a moon that was not visible, that from time to time, if it got close enough, it could influence water levels in a very small region, like we're seeing now. And people are sending in pictures from observations of water retreats like they've never seen before. Low tides that are extending out as far as you can see. So that's why I saved this picture here, because of the semicircle. Looks like it could be part of a full circle. And again, that was in infrared. So maybe there is something there that you just simply can't see. I'm sure there's a lot of things out there that we can't see and just simply have no knowledge of, Most of us, in fact, everybody watching this video, you never get off the face of the earth, so it wouldn't be hard to keep people in the dark about certain things. Like this one here.
What the hell is that?
Video again from Concord, North Carolina. I mean, what is that thing? That's real. She saw that while she was sitting at a stoplight. The reason she stopped recording is because she had to start driving again. That's traveling through the skies of North Carolina. Huh. Did anybody else see that? The reason I put it in negative format is you can tell it's got some sort of a vapor trail. Or maybe it's the atmosphere itself.
What the hell is that?
See how it's got some sort of a trail behind it? And it looks exactly like those two there from Fort Myers. It looks just like that one in England. In fact, it's nearly a perfect match. The only thing different is the color. Perfect match with the one in England. Just a slightly different color. There's the original
What the
when she
hell is
first saw
that?
it. And you can see chemtrails in the sky too. Right there is one. And it's almost like it flew above the chemtrail, maybe dragging part of that with it. There's the two from Fort Myers, and there's the one from England. It's shaped just exactly like the one from England. Exactly. Just a different color. I've never seen anything like that. And that's legit. That's a legitimate observation right there. I don't know, guys. But these things are being observed all around the world. In fact, the video I
What the
showed you
hell is that?
from the Philippines, it kind of resembles that. It's just much, much higher in the atmosphere. But the thing of it is, I looked at it, and I do everything, I look at it open-mindedly, and I call it like I see it. The thing from the Philippines almost looked like it had wings that were moving. Not like an airplane, that were moving. But, you know, it was, 10,000 feet in the air? You shouldn't be able to see a bird that looked that big at those tremendous heights. But that was in the Philippines. From a distance, it looked like this, but just much smaller. That's clearly, this here is
What the
clearly
hell
not
is
a
that?
large bird. I have no idea what that is. Once again, that's out of Concord, North Carolina. And again, like anything else, if you really want to learn, if we made a map, I'm doing too many right now, but if we just made a map showing observations, marking on a map when people observe those things, you know, you can do all kinds of things, and you can come close. Now, here's the thing in the Philippines. What you're looking at now is this was observed from the Philippines a few days ago, and it's at a very high altitude. But if you look at it really close, you can see what looks like wings moving. Not stationary like a plane. They're moving. So at that height, yeah, that's definitely looks like a bird. But at the height that it's at, the size of that thing must be incredible. So, and here's the objects again from Fort Myers, Florida. And again, guys, if you see things like this unusual sky phenomenon, any types of water phenomenon, like if you see water disappearing from a coastline, an extremely low river, even a lake, take a picture, send the picture to reports at mrmbb333.com, and we'll take a look at it. And if it's anything to do with water, we are trying to assemble a map to see if we can maybe identify patterns or something to try to figure out what's happening with our water. It's very, very unusual. And then, of course, the sky phenomenon. Love sky phenomenon. I have since I was in elementary school. So you cannot send me enough sky photos, I can assure you that. And there's not one that I won't like. But some of these, like right now, I'm just focusing on these orb type of things. I just don't recall ever seeing this many that were photographed and videotaped in such a short period of time. And again, this could be just a small fraction of what's actually being observed. This is just what we know about, you know? So, like the trees up in the state of Washington, you know, the mighty Douglas firs get blown over by 70 or 80 mile an hour winds. That's not going to happen. But, you know, we know it. Something happened up in Washington. Maybe it happened somewhere else around the world, too. Maybe it did. You know, if we maybe look around, we could figure it out. But I did look, and I haven't seen anything but I was trying to find the water retreat over in Greece and couldn't find it. And it was a bona fide event that people were actually talking about, but there was no news of it. That's the thing. So, anyway, guys, I appreciate all of the photos that you have sent in. Keep them coming. Keep your cameras rolling. Keep your eyes to the skies, because you never know what you're going to see, especially in this day and age with all of the stuff going on. And you know what? Now is the best time, probably the best time ever, to get a legitimate capture of something. You know, I hear about people faking things, you know, and you know what? When making videos, why would you have to? You know what I mean? I mean, if you just do a little bit of research and do a little bit of work, there's all kinds of legitimate things to share with people. There's no need to fake anything. Gee, like this here, that's real. That's off the south coast of Florida, or Texas, South Padre Island. But back to the sky phenomenon, by all means, share your photos. We'll put them either in the sky phenomenon photo gallery and or a video, possibly both. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I've been rambling on, but be sure to check out the website if you haven't already. I know most of you probably have, but if you haven't, bookmark the website here. It's MrMBB333.com. It's a good little information hub, and I think if you visit this on a daily basis, you'll leave here a little more knowledgeable with something. I think you'll find something of value here, depending on your interests. It's totally obvious. I'm a space guy. I'm a sky guy. I like to study the sun, the earth, the planets. That's no secret. That's just who I am. So this site is loaded with that type of information, plus the amazing sky phenomenon photo gallery that I can thank you guys for building this library. And we've only got maybe less than 10 days. I've taken the pictures from last year and transferred them over into this new gallery. So I do have some pictures from different people from last year, Rhea and Kay Pellet, Joseph. A lot of you guys have sent in some really good pictures. Terry. So the library does include some pictures from last year, but most of these are just from 2018. So great job. Keep your eyes to the skies and keep your cameras rolling. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Time is our most valuable commodity, and I want to thank you for sharing your time with me. Thanks for watching, and as always, be brave, be strong, be wise, and be safe out there.